On today's show, crypto taking Latin America by storm. Hello and welcome to the Clear Crypto podcast, brought to you by Starkware and Cointelegraph. Here there isn't any jargon, there's no hype, just straight talk on what crypto and blockchain are doing today, what they're going to be doing tomorrow. The crypto conversation in 2025 very much focused on America, the White House, Washington. Our prediction is that 2026 is going to very much be a global conversation, so we're kicking off the new year with a far more global conversation. Hello, Gareth, and happy 2026.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Nathan. Finally back in the saddle after a little break and ready to tackle the new year.
Yeah, finished off the sherry?
Not quite.
Fair enough. Now, Gareth, as I said in the intro, I think 2025 was the year when all the eyes were on Washington, and they'll remain there 2026. But what we're also going to see is a very global focus for crypto this year. It's really the year when I think we're going to be telling the stories of how crypto makes a difference all over the globe, not just in the States. Feel free to disagree with me. Am I right?
No, I think you are right. 2025 was definitely the year for the USA and huge regulatory change. And I think 2026 will definitely be us zooming out a little bit and looking at other parts of the world and how crypto is making big changes there. And I do think it'll continue to be the stable coin kind of show, but a lot more stories coming out of developing nations and developing areas with circular economies using Bitcoin or various cryptocurrencies to improve the lives of everyday people. I think that, well, at least that's a narrative that I'd like to see taking shape.
Yeah, and you're the journalist, so you shape the narratives anyway. So that's what we're going to be seeing on multimedia at Cointelegraph and everywhere else. And also, that's the kind of stuff that we're working on at Starkware. You know, over the last year at Starkware, we were really excited and remain excited about Bitcoin, usability of Bitcoin, utility of Bitcoin. Obviously, that's not just a US story, that's a global story. So we're joined by Ignacio Jimenez, who is one of the senior folks from Lemon Cash. Now, I love the title Lemon Cash because he's in Argentina, where they've had some great difficulties with the financial system. It makes me think of the old saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. When life gives you lemons, make Lemon Cash. It is a homegrown app that makes everyday stuff easier, more intuitive, and more possible, and actually uses crypto to do that. It helps people to save, spend, and live in crypto, complete with a Visa card that pays cash back in Bitcoin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having us as well. Very glad to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, you are the leading crypto platform in Argentina and across Latin America, over 2 million users. Some people will be watching this from the States and going, wow, that is a lot of adoption. Does crypto have special resonance where you are?
Totally, man. Yes. So right now, I can update you on those numbers too. So right now, we're nearing the 5 million mark in terms of users. Now that we have our presence already in Argentina and Peru mainly, and one of the biggest goals right now for the next year is to keep the expansion going all around Latin America and also increasing the footprint of crypto on a daily basis usage on these new countries that we're going to be expanding soon.
Okay, now there are plenty of podcasts that are telling the stories of companies. We like to tell the story of concepts through the companies. So what we're keen to understand is, what is that special resonance that crypto has for Argentina, for Latin America? Tell us the stuff that might not be obvious if I'm watching from New York or from London.
So the main appeal for crypto was the new options and also like a safe haven for all the restrictions that we are very used to have here in Latin America, right? So in Argentina, we were very used to a couple of years ago to have capital restrictions, really hard access to, let's say, US dollars. So that's where, for example, the stablecoins that are the hot narrative right now on crypto, they started to emerge and started really getting a very strong footprint here in Argentina, right? So we can safely say that in Argentina, stablecoins have been for a long time already. So right now, we're starting to see as well different uses of other assets and also other uses of crypto facilities and also options.
Gareth, you're amazing at drawing those lines from the crypto talk to the actual human impact talk, because a phrase like capital restrictions does not sound so serious. But if I'm actually living in a country with capital restrictions, that has massive impact on my life. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I think for anyone who's watching who doesn't really know what that means, it means you're living in a country that has very strict rules about the money you can use, what money you can buy on the market, and essentially restricting people's ability to choose the medium of exchange that they would like to do things with. So in Latin America, in places like Argentina, which has over the past few decades had various hyperinflation events and, seen the value of their money, fall to next to nothing. People there are very cautious and very worried about being able to store their wealth.
Now, if you're watching this, you probably need a bit of context. So back in 2020, when most of the world was busy speculating on Bitcoin's price, Argentina was living an entirely different crypto story. It was about survival. What was happening was that people were not chasing gains. They were trying to actually stop their savings from disappearing week to week. Gareth, as journalists, I always feel this about news. I speak to people who live in very calm places and they say, I don't follow the news, as if following the news is kind of, a hobby, something that's optional. And it's kind of the same with crypto. In countries with stable economic systems, you can follow, get interested in crypto or not. In countries with instability, it's kind of about your survival, right?
Yeah, it definitely is really about your survival. And I think, having Ignacio here and someone from Argentina, South America, Latin American country, and any developing nation, I'm from South Africa, it has a similar problem where people are worried about the purchasing power of the South African rand. And they are in many of these countries where there are strict capital controls, the government telling you what you can and can't do with your money, restricting access to other foreign exchange. Naturally, people are trying to find some sort of a solution. And it's one of the beauties of Bitcoin, stablecoins, and other decentralized monetary protocols is that no one can tell you how to use the protocol, or no one can restrict you from using the protocol. They can try, but mostly we can find a way around it. And in a place like Argentina, you've seen massive adoption of Bitcoin and stablecoins as people look for a safe haven. Ignacio, I know a lot of Argentinian Bitcoiners that often talk about how important Bitcoin has been for Argentinians just because of hyperinflation and the concerns around the local currency. Is that a big reason why you've seen such success with Lemon, and why people in Argentina and other countries in South America are looking at Bitcoin and stablecoins as a solution to fiat money?
Totally, man. Yes, and something very characteristic from Latin America especially is the speed of adoption that you have here. Because as you were guys mentioning before, conditions, of course, we are not the best examples to have the most favorable conditions at all. So the speed of adoption, and also that, let's say, idea of I need to survive for the next day to getting the best solution for this, because I cannot do this if I don't have an accessible solution. That's what drives, let's say, adoption here in Latin America. And crypto has been like a perfect example. Maybe before in the previous administration that we had, with all these capital controls, that you could go to the bank and only access to $200 every single month. And maybe you could even buy, or you could even pay the rent if you're like a typical family, right? So we're starting to see that sort of development here in Argentina. And in other countries of Latin America, there are some similarities, but Argentina, I think it has like its particular way of adoption, right? And we started with capital controls in the previous administration that was around before 2023. So a lot of stablecoins that were adopted. That's what it really created the accessibility, and also to, for example, if the peso was losing 30-40% of its value, stablecoins were like a really accessible option and easy to access through, let's say, 3 or 4 clicks on Lemon app, for example, and also with the other players. That created that first layer of adoption. And let's say with the new administration, that capital controls right now, they're not like an everyday matter or maybe a problem right now. Then we started to see the adoption of new assets. So Bitcoin started to appear on the scene. And it was something that maybe since the inception of Lemon, we were trying to push that adoption of Bitcoin through the cashback that we have in our prepaid card. That was like a first layer of adoption that we tried to push with them. They created that first glimpse of Bitcoin. What is it about? I have some Bitcoin. Okay, what I can do with it? But more, let's say, better after 2023, beginning of 2024, that was like a really good year that we started to see, at least on our platform, that Bitcoin was starting to get really adopted, right? People were like really very intelligent in terms of the price. So they were not playing with the volatility, but wisely speaking, they were paying attention to the volatility. So they were more wise in terms of when to buy, when to sell. And they started to create this habit of using Bitcoin as a hedge, right? To like a really safe haven. And right now in the last year, we started to see more like a combination. So Bitcoin started to be the store of value, maybe what you were saying just now, Gareth, more like the common sense of what Bitcoin it is. And we started to see stablecoins rise a little bit again, but more used in terms of products, like in really particular use cases. So in terms of cross-border transfers, very, very similar to what is happening right now in the worldwide stablecoin ecosystem. We started to see like really plug it in Latin America because the use cases were completely transparent and the very best examples for cross-border payments, freelancers and contractors that they need to get their money, let's say from they get their wages in the US and they need to bring it back to Argentina for paying their bills and so on. They started to get it with really easy ways through stablecoins on the back. Or even a very good example is, for example, people in Argentina, it's very common that people travel to Brazil for the holidays and so on, especially in these times around the year. And Brazil has a payment system that is called Pix. And right now, Argentinians that travel to Brazil, they can pay through the Pix system using, for example, stablecoins on the back. So there's some providers and also infrastructure that allows you to go with your crypto, go with your local currency as well, go to the local payment infrastructure right around there with your own app. You don't need to do anything else. You can pay locally using stablecoins on the back. So this is the narrative that we're starting to see, or we started to see this year. And we see that on 2026, it's going to be even more deeper, even more like extensive, right? Only in the countries of Latin America. So that is a little bit of our vision that is coming up.
Both of you, what I'd like to finish off with in today's show is a sense of what can other countries that face difficulties, what can they learn from the Latin America experience with crypto? Gareth, give us an insight.
Yeah, look, I don't live in Latin America, but I am from a developing country that is South Africa. So I will come from the lens of what we can learn about what was bad and what led to the good. And I guess in any country where there are capital controls that restrict people's ability and choice of what money they can use, that is not a good system. And in the same breath, in any country where they have rules and regulations that promote innovation and allow people to use new tools and services, that is great. And at the end of the day, people will make things work for themselves. So if they're in a situation or a country that is facing hyperinflation, or they're worried about the value of the domestic currency, they are going to look for an alternative option. We live in 2026. Bitcoin is a thing. Stable coins are a thing. You can very easily get your money into an asset like Bitcoin and use that as a hedge if you're uncertain about the future of your country. And I think that's a big takeaway, is that you might as well not fight people on it, because they're going to find some avenue to get there. And I think Argentina is just one of those countries that's a prime example of people making that happen for themselves and giving them back control of their money. That's what it all comes down to at the end of the day.
Ignacio, give us an insight. What can other countries learn from Latin America in your view?
I think that Gareth already put it like very, very clear for all of us, but maybe the only thing that I could add is to countries to really incentivize entrepreneurship, so trying to find those entrepreneurs that they look for innovation, try to incentivize those sort of behaviors as well, and pushing them like really to create really good solutions that actually matters, and they give really new options for the users and also for the citizens here. That's maybe what here in Argentina works really good. And besides of all the adoption that we have been speaking about, stablecoins, crypto, and so on, that is maybe one key aspect that it works really good here. Argentina has really good entrepreneurs. That is something that other countries, of course, they will have it, but it's a really good lesson from here that they can push it out as much as they can. And I think the result will be great from that.
Ignacio, great insights. Thank you so much for joining us on the Clear Crypto podcast. Now, a few things to tell you before we finish today. First of all, if you've not listened to every single back episode of the Clear Crypto podcast, highly recommended that you do so. Let that be your New Year resolution. Check them all out, share them with friends, let us know your thoughts about what we're doing and any suggestions that you have as well. Second of all, if you want to follow anyone that you've heard today, our dear guest is at NACHIGIMENEZ. Gareth can be found at Gaza_Jenks, and you can find me at Nathan on Crypto. Lastly, we want to thank our wonderful friends at Tonal Media for producing our episodes with such love and care, and to remind you that this episode, like all of our episodes, is brought to you by Starkware and Cointelegraph. See you next time on the pod.